So, what is insurance? Why might you need it? What purpose does it serve you? All of these questions are really awesome because a lot of people either just don't bother with insurance because they don't understand it, or they buy a whole lot of insurance that's inappropriate and doesn't really serve them. If this sounds like something you might have done, keep listening. This video is for you. So, at its core, insurance is a business of risk. You pay money in the form of a premium so that you don't have to run the risk of an event happening. Maybe it's your death and the effect that it would have on the finances of the rest of your family. Maybe it's sickness and the medical costs that would incur for you. Maybe it's a theft, a car break-in, a car crash. There's many types of insurance because there's many types of things that can go wrong. If you were to insure for everything, you'd end up with no money. So, you need to first consider, number one, what sorts of risks is it worth it for you to go and insure against? You're looking at the worst case scenarios, the things that could go wrong, and saying, is the chance that this might go wrong and the significance for me if this goes wrong, is that big enough to warrant the size of the premium that I'm paying? So, take for example health insurance. If your health insurance, say, covers $100,000 of your costs if you get cancer, then maybe that might be worthwhile for you if, for example, it costs you $10 a week. But if it costs you $40 a week, you might go, no, while I would like to minimise the risk, I don't think it's worth that amount of money. At its core, insurance comes down to that calculation. It's calculated risk. It's looking at, is it worth it for me to reduce that risk? Something you might think about, for example, is, well, how many nest eggs have I put away in case that sort of thing happens? Could I pull through? So take, for example, if you had an unexpected dental cost. If you've got some nest eggs, some savings sitting there, and you could weather that storm, then it might not be worth it for you to extend your medical insurance to get dental care. However, if on the other hand, you don't put money aside for that sort of thing, you might want to decide to either start doing that or to insure against it. So for people who are more on the anxious side, insurance can be a really useful product because essentially what you're paying isn't so much to minimise the risk, but it's to minimise your day-to-day anxiety. It's to minimise the effect it will have on your emotional well-being day-to-day, knowing that those risks are out there. That is what you're paying for. So for those people who have a whole load of insurances that realistically they probably don't need and they're never going to use, if it reduces your anxiety, that can be really helpful. So myself, for example, I got travel insurance while going to India because COVID could very well disrupt our flights, and if it does, that would be a really big problem. We paid about $400 for both my wife and I, and there's an excess involved if we were to go and claim on the policy. However, that's worth it for us because given how significant COVID is right now, that's a big anxiety for us. And while we are triple vaccinated and it might be worth running the risk, realistically, we just don't want that feeling when we go overseas. So we shopped around, got the best possible policy for the price that minimised the risk, and then we took it out. As you can see, we're actually at the airport now, feeling a lot more comfortable and less stressed out, knowing that we aren't actually, if COVID was to happen, we're going to be fine because travel insurance will cover it. You do hit problems, however, when you take insurance out on everything because there's just so many things that can go wrong and you can insure against risks that aren't even relevant to you. So you need to go and read quite carefully the documents to see what is actually covered. You can also call them up, ask them some questions. Make sure that their product actually serves you. The best thing you can do is to be informed and be aware of what it is that you're actually buying. Good things to consider as well is the excess. If you've got a high excess, for example, and hundreds of dollars or maybe even thousands, maybe that isn't going to actually reduce the financial risk to the extent that you'd need in order for the policy to be worthwhile. Because after all, if you have a car crash and you've got to pay $800 and the repair's only $1,200, well, what have you saved? Whereas if you're driving a Tesla, that policy suddenly looks a heck of a lot more appealing. So you really need to think. Don't just take it on the word of a family member or a friend that this insurance was right for them, so it will be right for you. You need to stop and think, what is right for me? And that is something that will help you decide what insurance that you need. As well, every few years I recommend reviewing this, because as you progress through life and your circumstances change, your needs for insurance are going to change as well. So keep an eye out and focus on awareness. That is going to be the way that you can choose insurance products that best suit you. For myself, I'm in favour of proactivity. So right now I'm trying to squirrel money away for health and that sort of thing. And I found that health insurance for me isn't so good, because most of the things that they cover are reactive. Things like cancer treatment, things like if you had to get surgery. Whereas I'm trying to focus my efforts right now on proactive things like going to the chiropractor, trying to go and reduce problems that are already there and prevent new ones. So for me, it's not really a cost-effective policy, but in 10 years, the situation might well change. So to summarize, insurance is really useful because it's a way of paying money to eliminate or minimize certain risks. It's a tool that you should use with care, however, and with awareness, because you should be thinking about what your situation is and what your needs are, and whether the insurance is actually going to be appropriate to meet your needs. After all, just because it's right for someone else, it doesn't mean it's going to be right for you.